My name is Hannah Reeve. If you're reading this, I want you to believe me. More than that, I need you to. I'm writing this down because I don't know how much longer I'll have the mental clarity to do it. The events that unfolded during my stay at the Braxton Arms Apartments were not figments of my imagination. They were real, real enough to leave scars, both in places you can see and others you can't. When I moved to Braxton Arms, it was late October. I'd just gotten out of a bad relationship and needed to restart my life. The rent was cheap, the building was quiet, and the landlord, Mr. Mallory, seemed pleasant if a little off. There was something in his eyes, something tired, beaten down, almost pleading. I should have paid more attention. The building was a pre-war, red brick structure nestled in an older part of the city, just close enough to downtown to feel convenient, but far enough to feel forgotten. I was placed in Unit 3C, third floor. Mallory even helped me carry my last box up the narrow staircase. On our way up, I noticed the walls, floral wallpaper peeling like dry skin, stains that didn't look like water damage, and a musty smell of wood, mold, and something sweetly rotten. When we reached my unit, he lingered. "Try not to walk the halls too late," he said, not meeting my eyes. I laughed, assuming it was a joke. "Why's that?" "Sound travels. The walls are old. Best not to wake anything up." He didn't explain what that meant. Just gave me a thin smile and walked off. My apartment was fine, dated but livable. The bathroom tiles were cracked, the ceiling had yellow smoke stains, and the kitchen light flickered like it was debating staying alive. But it was mine. I unpacked until midnight. That's when I heard it for the first time. Click, 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 click. The unmistakable sound of high heels walking down the hallway. I froze. Who the hell was walking the halls at that hour? I went to the peephole. Nothing. Just the dimly lit hallway with its tarnished sconces and shadowed corners. Click, click. It wasn't just outside my door anymore. It was closer. Louder. Like someone pacing. Just a few feet from where I stood. Click, click. And then nothing. No door opening. No footsteps fading away. Just silence. I waited there for 10 minutes, trying to convince myself it was one of the neighbors. But I'd seen only 2 other people on my floor since I moved in. An old woman in 3B who never made eye contact, and a young man in 3A who played music loud enough to rattle the vents. Maybe it was the pipes. Maybe it was my imagination. I went to bed telling myself just that. The footsteps came every night. Always at 3 a.m. Always heels. Sometimes fast, sometimes slow. Always passing my door, sometimes stopping in front of it. One night, I heard the faint tap of knuckles on wood. I didn't answer. I couldn't. Another night, the doorknob jiggled like someone was trying to open it. I jumped up and yelled, "Who's there?" But no one responded. Just silence. Deafening and total. I went to Mr. Mallory's office the next day. Told him someone was trying to get into my apartment at night. He barely looked up from his newspaper. "Are you sure it wasn't just a dream?" "It happens every night. At the same time." Someone in heels. His lip twitched like he wanted to say something but thought better of it. "There used to be a woman in 3D. Long time ago. She wore heels." I perked up. "What happened to her?" "She's gone now. Moved out." But the way he said it, it sounded like a lie wearing shoes too big. A few nights later, I found a note slipped under my door. It read, in shaky handwriting, "Don't follow the sound. She wants you too. That's how she gets in." No name. No explanation. I knocked on 3B and 3A. No one answered. I slipped the note under Mr. Mallory's office door. The next morning, it was gone, and I never got a response. I started recording the sounds on my phone. At 2:59 a.m., I'd hit record, and sure enough, click, click, click. But the strange part, when I played it back in the morning, there was nothing, just static. It wasn't until night 10 that I finally saw her. I had fallen asleep on the couch, TV humming white noise. A sharp sound woke me, tap, 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 on the glass balcony door behind me. Heart pounding, I turned slowly. There, standing on the other side of the glass, was a woman, mid-30s, pale face, black dress, blood-red heels. She was staring directly at me, not moving, not blinking, her mouth slightly parted like she was mid-breath. I scrambled back, grabbed the nearest thing I could, a glass of water, and hurled it at the door. When the glass hit, the woman vanished. No sound, no shattering, nothing. I checked the balcony. Locked. The door had no signs of tampering. I didn't sleep the next night, or the night after. I called my sister. I told her what was happening, and she said I needed rest. You've been through a lot, hon. You're probably projecting. Grief and stress do strange things. I started noticing the hallway carpet was darker near my door, stained like wet footprints, but upside down, as if someone walked on the ceiling. Once I looked up and thought I saw soot, a smudge of black footprints on the ceiling above my bed. I didn't sleep there again. Around day 15, the power went out, just in my apartment. I used a flashlight to check the breaker box. Inside, tucked between two switches, was a single red high heel. It was old, worn down at the toe. A smear of what I hoped was rust marked the inner sole. I dropped it and screamed, ran to Mr. Mallory's office, but it was locked. I banged on the door until my hand hurt. From behind the door, I heard something. Click, click, click. After finding that red high heel in the breaker box, I didn't sleep. I couldn't. I sat in my living room with every light on, door locked, phone clutched in my hand. At some point around 2:30 a.m., the lights started to dim, one by one, without shutting off completely, like they were trying to breathe. And at 3 a.m. sharp, the clicking started again. Click, click, click. But this time, it didn't stay outside my door. It echoed louder inside my walls. Then above me, the ceiling. I tilted my head up, and I swear to you I saw her. A woman crawling across the ceiling, back arched unnaturally, elbows bent backwards like a spider, and head twisted around to stare down at me. Her hair swung in stringy clumps. Her mouth was open too wide, and her red heels tapped along the ceiling with those familiar, precise clicks. She was watching me. I blinked, and she was gone. But something cold had been left behind in the air, something sharp that filled my lungs and made me cough. I slept with my back to the wall, a knife under my pillow, and every window locked. That morning, I heard movement next door. Unit 3A. I hadn't seen my neighbor Joel for days. I'd assumed he left for work early or was out of town. But the music was off for once. Just silence. I knocked. No answer. I knocked again, more urgently. The door creaked open. Unlocked. Joel. I called in. The smell hit me first, like spoiled meat and wet fabric. The apartment was dark. Curtains drawn. On the wall were dozens of pages, ripped from books, notebooks, printed emails, all pinned up and scribbled over with frantic, looping handwriting. At the center of it all was a drawing, a charcoal sketch of the woman. Red heels, arched back, blank eyes. Above it, written in what I think was blood, If you hear her walk, she's already inside. I turned and left. I didn't even close the door. I found Mr. Mallory outside, dragging a trash bin across the back lot. I need to talk to you, I said, trying to keep my voice even. He didn't look surprised. I told you not to walk the halls. I didn't. She's in my ceiling. She left a shoe in my fuse box. Who is she? He paused and sighed. He looked 20 years older than he had when I moved in. Her name was Rena, lived in 3D, used to be a lounge singer. Said she liked the echo of her heels. Said it made her feel alive. What happened? He hesitated, then answered, she jumped. Off the roof. 1967. Said something was following her. Crawling in the walls. She screamed for months about voices in the vents and a face in the glass. And now she's doing the same thing to me? Mallory shook his head. No, she's not haunting you. You're listening. I didn't know what that meant. I still don't. But it chilled me in a way I can't explain. That night, I went to Unit 3D, Rena's old apartment. I should have stayed in my room. I should have moved out. But something was pulling at me, curiosity or desperation. I'm not sure. The door was sealed shut, but I noticed something scratched into the wood around the frame. Deep grooves, like fingernails or claws. I stepped back. That's when I heard it. From the other side of the door, Hannah, a voice like velvet scraped over glass. It said my name. Hannah, you opened it. I didn't open anything. I ran. That night, I had a dream. Except I don't think it was a dream. I was standing in my hallway, except it was longer than usual. Endless. The walls were bleeding, dripping with something black and thick. A flickering red light pulsed at the far end. I heard the clicking of heels, sharp, angry, relentless. I turned and saw her. Rena. She wasn't walking. She was dragging herself now. Her legs twisted at wrong angles. Her mouth hung open, leaking dark water. And her eyes, God, her eyes were gone. Just empty sockets. You let me in, she rasped. Now walk with me. I woke up screaming. There were footprints, wet, heel-shaped, leading from the door to my bed. The next morning, I went to the city records office. Braxton Arms had been built in 1929. Since then, there had been 7 suicides. 5 women, 2 men, all from the 3rd floor. All had complained of noises, whispers, footsteps in the night. The article about Rena described her jumping after months of erratic behavior and increasingly disturbing complaints about someone living in the ceiling. In her suicide note, she wrote, "There's something that wears your voice, that walks in your skin. It clicks its heels to remind you it's close. Once you look, it never stops." I went home and tore open every vent, every panel in the ceiling, every crack I could find. In my bedroom closet, I noticed a bulge behind the drywall. I smashed it open. Inside, there was a small, hollow cavity. And in it, a woman's compact mirror, a lipstick tube, a shriveled, blackened hand still wearing a ring a bone, with my name etched into it. I called the police. They searched my apartment, took statements, promised to send forensics. 2 days later, the case was marked inactive. No follow-up, no fingerprints, nothing. The next morning, I got a call from my own number. When I answered, there was silence. Then the sound of heels. Click, click, click. I didn't sleep after that phone call. The sound of those heels clicking through my own speaker, through my own number, had crawled into my brain like mold and drywall. I sat there, frozen, staring at the phone screen long after it had gone dark. It wasn't a hallucination. I know what I heard. I replayed the voicemail 100 times, even let my coworker Josh listen. He heard it too, and it wasn't a prank. The timestamp, the metadata, everything pointed to one impossible fact. The call came from inside my apartment. I didn't go to work the next day. I stayed home, phone clutched in hand, listening for anything. Around 2:15 p.m., it started again, a scratching sound from inside the wall behind the bathroom mirror. It wasn't like mice or a loose pipe. It was rhythmic, almost methodical, like someone tracing circles with their fingernails. I stood in front of the mirror. The scratching stopped. Then a single click echoed behind the glass, like a heel striking porcelain. I leaned closer, and for just a moment, I swear I saw another face inside the mirror. A woman. Her lips didn't move, but I heard her, "Let me walk. Please let me walk." I smashed the mirror. Nothing but pipes behind it. No cavity. No hiding place. But scratched faintly into the copper pipe. H. Rivers, 3 a.m. my name. And the time. I went back to Mallory. Demanded answers. He was sitting on the front steps, as if waiting for me. "I need to know about Rena," I said. He shook his head. "You think this is about Rena?" "No. No, girl. She was just one of them. There've been others. All since the 30s. Always the same thing. Noise in halls, footsteps at 3 a.m., and then..." He trailed off. "Then what?" I pushed. They opened the door. "What door?" "The door inside. Not the front one. Not one you see. The door that shows up when you start listening too close." He looked directly at me then, eyes sharp and dark. "You've already heard her, haven't you?" I didn't answer. I didn't have to. If you hear her steps, you're already halfway through. She walks until she finds the one who listens. That night, I got drunk. It was the only way I could think straight anymore. Every time I tried to sleep, I heard her, heels clicking, slow and deliberate. Up the walls, down the hall, behind my headboard. I wandered down to the basement, toward the locked storage room. The one Mallory kept padlocked. But this time, it wasn't locked. The chain was undone. Inside, it smelled like mildew and copper. The air was thick and wet, like a flooded tomb. Against one wall were rows of personal items. A child stuffed bear, a wedding photo, face scratched out a pair of men's glasses, snapped in half, a shoebox labeled Eleanor 1964, a binder. Tenant reports. Third floor, only inside the binder were handwritten logs by previous tenants. Heard her again. Same time. Click, click, click. Always stops outside my door. Elsie, 1973, woke up to wet footprints. But no water in the apartment. AT, 1981, there's a woman in the ceiling tiles. I saw her. I know I did. RM, 1995, she asked to borrow my skin. CF 2002, I dropped the binder. On the final page, written in smeared red, HR 2025, she knows you now. That's the end. My initials. The current year. I ran back upstairs, heart pounding. But as I turned the corner into my hallway, I stopped cold. There she was, at the far end of the corridor. Not a ghost, something worse. Her arms were too long. Her head tilted too far, like a marionette whose strings had snapped. She wore a 1950s dress, torn and stained, and her red heels were soaked in something dark. Her mouth opened wider than it should have, and though her lips didn't move, I heard her again. You live where I died. You walk where I fell. Let me in. I turned and bolted into my apartment, slammed the door, locked everything, shoved a dresser in front of it. But then I heard it click, click, click. Inside, From the ceiling, from the walls, from the closet. I stared at the closet door all night. Didn't sleep, didn't blink. At 3 a.m. exactly, it creaked open on its own. No wind, no air current. It just opened. And behind it, in the shadow, a whisper. You dropped something. I stepped closer against every survival instinct I had. Lying just inside the closet was something small, glinting in the dark. My phone, but I had it in my hand the whole time. I checked my pocket. My phone was still there. The one in the closet lit up. Caller ID. I didn't answer. The voicemail appeared 30 seconds later. I played it. It was me, whispering. I saw her face. I saw it. She's not human. She's wearing Rena's skin like a dress. She's not walking. She's waiting. And then the call ended with 3 sharp, deliberate sounds. Click, click, click. I didn't leave the apartment for 3 days. I barely ate. I barely moved. Just sat on the floor with both phones in front of me, mine, and the identical one that had appeared in my closet. Same scratches, same battery percentage, but only one difference. The messages it received were always a few minutes ahead of reality. I tested it. I left both phones recording on the kitchen counter. Then I whispered something aloud in my bedroom. Moments later, that same sentence echoed from the second phone speaker, like it had been recorded before I even spoke. And worse, it wasn't my voice anymore. It was close, but not mine. I decided to break into the apartment below mine. Unit 2B, the one nobody ever rented out. Mallory had always been cagey about it, mumbling about mold issues or the floor needing reinforcement. But the real reason? There was no floor to reinforce. Just a trapdoor. The unit was stripped bare. Dust hung in the air like mist. On the far wall, under an old shredded rug, I found a metal ring embedded into the floor. It was a hatch, reinforced iron, sealed around the edges with wax and what looked like human hair. In tiny letters scratched into the metal, do not open. Do not let her walk. I opened it. The hiss of stale air escaped. It smelled of rotting fabric and teeth. A steep staircase led down into blackness. The walls on either side were scratched, clawed, and not by rats. There were fingerprints embedded in the wood. 10 steps down, I turned and looked up. The hatch had shut itself. At the bottom of the stairs was a square room. No lights, just old portraits framed and hung crooked on the damp walls. But the faces weren't painted. They were photographs. Black and white photos of women, all expressionless, each with something etched beneath their chin, a time and a date. 3 a.m., different years. Always the same time. On the ground were shoes, red heels. Piles of them. Some looked decades old. Others looked brand new. Then I saw the mirror. It was full length and tilted forward like someone had been dragged past it. In the reflection, I saw myself standing in a room and someone standing behind me. I spun. Nothing there. But in the mirror, she remained. Closer now, and I realized, with creeping dread, she wasn't mimicking me. She was watching. When I made it back to my apartment, I found something waiting in the center of the living room. A red heel. Just one. The floor beneath it was different, warped. As I stared, the boards began to bulge upward, as if something beneath was pushing to the surface. Click, click, click. I ran into the bedroom and slammed the door. The walls thudded. Then I heard the slow dragging sound of heels moving across the ceiling directly above me. And that voice, low, wet like breath through mud, You shouldn't have opened the floor. She's walking now. Mallory finally broke. When I banged on his door that night, he didn't try to lie. He pulled me inside and pointed toward his closet. It's not the apartment, he said. It's the floor. The wood they used. It was reclaimed from asylum upstate. The patients used to carve their names into it. Whisper to it. One woman jumped from the roof and split her head open on the main hall's floorboards. They buried her under them. He paused, but then the boards started to creak. At night, and people heard her, clicking through the hall, still wearing her shoes. They salvaged the wood after the building burned, made flooring out of it. Cheap. Used it here. It started in Unit 2B. That's where Rena lived. She was the first to hear the steps. You opened it. You let her start walking again. That night, I tried to destroy the flooring in my apartment. I grabbed a crowbar and started tearing up planks. But underneath the wood, in the subfloor, was writing, burnt into the layers beneath. When she makes it to the last door, she walks free. Your name's the last one on her list. There were dozens of names, dozens of dates, all 3 a.m. And at the bottom, H. Rivers, 3 a.m., pending at 2:59 a.m., my doorbell rang. Not knocked. It was the first time I'd ever heard it. I checked the peephole. Nothing there. I turned. The closet door was wide open. The clicking came from inside it now. Slow. Deliberate. Like heels stepping closer, one by one. I stepped back as the temperature dropped. My breath fogged. The air felt thick, electric, as if I were being watched by 1,000 eyes. And then, she stepped out, no longer hiding. Her dress dragged against the floor. Her arms were thin and broken at the joints. Her face, if you could call it that, looked like someone had molded it from wax and forgotten to finish. It sagged in places, twitched when it shouldn't. Her eyes were stitched shut, but she saw me. I knew she did. You opened the last door. I don't need to knock anymore. She smiled, and her mouth opened sideways, splitting her cheeks. Then she said my name, my full name. My breath held like something was squeezing my lungs. The woman, the thing that stepped from my closet, didn't belong to the world I knew. Her limbs folded the wrong way, like her bones had been set and reset hundreds of times. Her stitched eyelids twitched as if trying to open, and her mouth sagged into a jagged, leering crescent. The red heels clicked once as she stepped onto my bedroom floor. And then the second passed. 3 a.m. I remember it exactly because every light in the apartment, even the digital clock on a microwave, blinked off at the exact same time. Darkness swallowed everything. And in that darkness came a voice I felt rather than heard. She's walked every hallway. Yours is the last. After that night, I ran. I didn't grab anything, just threw on clothes and bolted into the street. It was pouring, but I couldn't stop. I didn't go back. I slept in my car. Then I started driving. For hours. Eventually ended up in a motel 5 towns over, somewhere in rural Massachusetts. It took 3 days before I could sleep again. I thought it was over, that I had escaped. But then a man knocked on my motel door. Middle-aged, nervous, pale. He said, "Your name's in the floor too, isn't it?" He'd seen it in his apartment. A different building. Same old wood. Same sound. The clicking. He called it the walker. And he wasn't the only one. He gave me a number. Said a woman in New York had been tracking people like us. She called them marked residents. I called her. Her name was Lily. She'd survived the walker's first appearance 20 years ago, before it had even been given a name. Lily kept records. Dozens of names. Dates. Descriptions of hauntings, always centered around reclaimed floorboards. She had photos, close-ups of faint, carved phrases on the subfloors, all in different locations, different buildings, but the same handwriting and the same time, 3 a.m. She said when the walker appeared to her, she didn't run. She watched. It doesn't look for the people. It looks for the path, the hallway, the stretch, like a record groove. Once it walks the full length, it's free. You opened the last segment, didn't you? I didn't speak. I didn't have to. She knew. Then it's almost done. It wasn't just my apartment anymore. Every hallway I entered started to change. Floors bowed beneath my weight. Mirrors warped. I began hearing echoes of my own footsteps behind me. Even in crowded places. Malls, bus stations, airports. Once in a hotel room, I woke to see the bathroom light was on and the sound of someone walking inside. Click, click, click. I threw open the door. Nothing. But on the mirror, fogged into the glass, she sees you. I stopped sleeping again. Ate only when I remembered. People around me noticed. Some pulled away. Others whispered when they thought I couldn't hear. One day, I returned to the motel to find my door hanging open. Inside, the floorboards were gone, ripped up. Beneath them, the subfloor was written over in fresh, black script. The last door was yours. She walked without walls now. Lily called me, frantic. The walkers changed. Something's wrong. People were disappearing. Not just one or two. 10, then 20, all in different towns, all with similar floorboard histories. But no signs of forced entry. No signs at all. Except one thing. Every apartment where someone vanished had a single red heel left behind. And each place had been hit at 3 a.m. We made a plan. A last-ditch effort to document it. Trap it. Maybe even end it. We chose a remote farmhouse Lily owned. Hardwood floors. Reclaimed boards, of course. Set up cameras. Microphones. Infrared sensors. Everything. Then we waited. The temperature dropped. Cameras flickered. The first sign was the whispering. Not from the air, from beneath the floorboards. It sounded like 100 voices whispering at once. Crying, laughing, begging. Then the clicking. Closer, closer. The hallway outside our room stretched. Literally grew. The walls pulled apart. The floor expanded, like something was making room. Then the door creaked open, and she walked in. Not accurately. Not completely. She didn't have a face anymore. Just indentations moving like wet clay. Her arms dragged behind her, and her legs bent backwards. Her skin looked like old paper soaked in oil. And yet, somehow she saw us. She raised her head, and every light in the house went out. In the pitch black, I heard Lily scream. I heard the clicking circle the room. Then silence. When the lights flickered back, Lily was gone. Just her red shoe left behind. I'm writing this from a diner. Not sure where. I haven't looked. Every hallway looks longer now. Every step echoes in pairs. Mine and someone else's. If you've heard her heels behind you. If your floor creaks at 3 a.m. If you've seen one red shoe appear for no reason. Leave. Don't try to trap her. Don't speak to her. Don't listen to what she whispers through the walls. Because once she's walked the final hallway, once the last name is checked off the wood, she won't need doors anymore. And no place will be safe. Not homes. Not motels. Not your mind. If you're reading this and you have floorboards in your home, check underneath. Look for writing. Carved names. Burn marks. Stains. If you see a time etched beneath, 3 a.m., start running. And whatever you do, don't answer the knock. I no longer sleep. It's not insomnia. It's survival. Because the last time I tried, I dreamed of my hallway. But it was wrong, longer, darker. No end in sight. And echoing from the far end, that familiar sound. Click, click, click. She was walking toward me. And when I woke up gasping, my ears were ringing with a whisper I still hear when the world goes quiet. You let me in. I think she speaks from the spaces between silence now. After Lily vanished, I try to warn people. Anyone. I posted online. Forums. Paranormal boards. Even news comment sections. Most ignored me. One user, Soblins33, messaged me privately. He'd read my posts. Said he'd lived it too, back in 1992, in a rental home outside Boston. Wooden floors. Heard the heels. Then he opened his hallway door one night and saw a woman standing backward, facing the wall, swaying. She was barefoot. The shoes came later. She visits 3 times, he said. First, she watches. Second, she listens. Third, she walks. Then she's inside you. Not metaphorically, literally. He said he'd carve his name under the floor with the words, "Not me." Not yet. He'd moved 20 times since. But the clicking followed. His last message to me, she's starting to hum now. Like something happy. That means it's almost over. He hasn't posted since. I've been tracking where she appears. They form a line. Not random. A perfect corridor. State to state. Home to home. Each location exactly 333 miles apart. That's not coincidence. That's intention. She's walking across the country. And every place she walks is one step closer to her final stop. I thought I was the end. I was wrong. I'm just the second to last hallway. I found a man named Darius in Maine who hadn't left his home in 11 years. Had blackout curtains. Covered his walls in aluminum. He told me a story I still don't understand. His daughter disappeared in 2004. Last thing she said to him was, "The lady said I could come inside her house." He thought it was a game, until one night, he woke to find his daughter's bedroom missing. Literally. There was no wall where the room had been, just blackness. An endless hallway, stretching in both directions. And at the far end, he saw a woman walking. Click, click. He blinked. Then the wall was back, and his daughter was gone. No one believed him, until I showed up. He took me to the wall. We peeled back the wallpaper, and carved into the plaster beneath, in fingernail-deep gouges. She doesn't walk in circles. She walks in sentences. I didn't understand then. Now I do. The walker isn't just traveling randomly. She's writing something. Every hallway, every name etched under the boards. Every person disappeared or destroyed, all part of her sentence. A message. Maybe for us. Maybe for something else. I went back to every house I could track. Scraped up floorboards. Photographed what was beneath. Hundreds of names. But also phrases. She was born with no feet. The tongue walks too. The ceiling is watching now. Her father locked her in a hallway for 7 years. Now we are all her feet. What does it mean? I don't know. But I do know this. The sentence isn't finished yet. And when it ends, I think so do we. I was staying in a cheap rental in upstate New York. Nothing special. Wooden hallway. Of course. I checked under the floor, saw my name again. This time not just etched. Carved. Fresh. Bleeding. I set up cameras. Lights. Live streamed it. But at 2:58 a.m., everything cut out. Even my backup battery. And from the hallway, I heard. Someone crying. Not sobbing. Not wailing. A child's cry. Soft. Then the clicking began. Slow. Measured. I turned toward the hallway, and she was already inside the apartment. Not walking through the door. She was stepping out of the wall, like it was made of water, like she was part of the building now. There was no knock. That's what matters. She doesn't need permission anymore. I saw her face this time, really saw it. And it wasn't just hers. It was dozens of faces, stitched and shifting, like her skin was a collage of those she's taken. Her mouth was full of teeth that weren't hers. Some still had braces. A gold cap. A pacifier lodged between molars. She opened her mouth, and a perfect recording of my mother's voice came out. Dinner's ready, sweetie. I ran, but the apartment didn't have a door anymore. Just more hallway. And she was everywhere now. Behind me, beside me, inside me. If you're reading this, I need you to remember something. Don't trust the hallway. Don't walk toward the sound. And if you hear heels at 3 a.m., don't run. Because she doesn't chase. She doesn't need to. She's writing. And you might be her next comma. Or maybe her period. Either way, she's coming.